You find yourself in a hallway. You look to your left, you look to your right. You see a magician, you pick a number, you choose a card. Your number was a queen and the card was 5. Welcome to the Large Blast Podcast Psychic Edition. I'm your host, Stoney, and I'm joined as always by man like Welshie.
Fear the astronomican.
And man like Matt.
The incorruptible.
And we're here to talk to you about all things Warhammer and in particularly psychic-based things on this, the Psychic episode. So we like to kick things off with a little something that most other podcasts call hobby progress, but because we're original, we call it hobby goings on. So, Welshie, what have you been doing on your hobbies going on?
I've been mostly building my 28 mag challenge that we spoke about before. The downtrodden. You're not allowed any weapons. You've got to make it grimdark, and you're just picking some low-life, non-Astartes fella living in a hive somewhere and trying to kind of show all that grimdark. So I've been building the kind of scenic base that the guy's going to go in, and I'll be starting painting on the guy soon.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Cool. So this is your futuristic garbage man, aka
Correct.
stolen straight out of Stoney's.
That's right. Yeah, stolen before you even told me about it. It's psychic.
Know.
It's a psychic shenanigan.
Cool. And Matt, what have you been up to?
I've finished my Adeptus Mechanicus flyer, which is pretty dull to paint. You know when you have models that you just don't seem to get on with, and you just want to get them out of the way.
Yeah.
As soon as I started painting that thing again, I knew why I'd put it down to the side 7 months ago, but I persevered and it's done. And then I've started painting 10 electro priests, which are also models that are incredibly horrible to paint. But
Are they the kind of shirtless guys with the sort of hands?
Yeah. The disco
Jazz hands.
Disco. Although these are the ones with the the gladiator double arm.
They're like glaives.
Pugil stick.
Yeah. And they're really dull. But I decided today to just try and smash out a character that's been in my bits box for 2 years. And he's my chosen psyker that I'm going to talk about today. So I'm going to try and paint him this weekend. Seemed like a good excuse.
Okay.
I like doing that when you're bogged down. Like I'd done a lot of melee putting on this 28 mag thing and casting, and it was my birthday, so I got a storm speeder for my birthday, and I just completely stopped everything and did start to finish the storm speeder. It's nice sometimes to do that if you're bogged down in another project. Great model, that storm speeder as well, by the way. Now I've seen it in black. Not blue.
Why particularly in black? Oh, not blue. Yeah.
Anything but blue. What about you, Stoney?
I've not been doing anything massively interesting, I guess. Just some ZBrush. Just been quite busy recently, so nothing beyond just doing ZBrush. Just nothing particularly. I'm at the stage now with my ZBrush where anything that I would talk about wouldn't be massively interesting because it's just like I use the inflate brush to go across a curve and like boring stuff like that. So maybe in the future, if you guys are clamoring for a 16-hour long Stony solo podcast of me just rambling about ZBrush, then I'm putting together the info on that. But as for this, the Large Blast podcast, I have nothing interesting to talk about Games Workshop-wise, I'm afraid.
Well, it's a good job there's lots in the news then.
The news! Let's move on. New games on the horizon coming out in this, the new news of the day. So what's the news here?
This is the game that you told us to have a look at, Stoney.
Oh shit! This is my news.
This is your news.
It's been so long since I had anything to drop. I usually just hand it straight over. All right, yeah, this is my news. My news of the day, right here. So this is a crack at doing a computer game version of an actual proper turn-based Warhammer 40k type thing. Which actually, I saw a kind of a 30-40 minute long video of a guy playing it. And doing some commentary over it, and it looked pretty good to me. So I sent it out to you guys, and I'm sort of interested to know what you would think about it.
Yeah, so it's called Battle Sector, right?
That's right, Warhammer 40,000 Battle Sector. And it's, I mean, there's definitely elements of it that are a bit gamified. Right, it's not a straight, conversion from 40k onto the back, computer, but this looks. But there's been other games that have made this kind of transition, like Magic the Gathering and other kind of nerdy staples that have done it. And we haven't seen anything 40k like this. This is because it's kind of XCOM-y. I don't know if either of you guys played XCOM or one of those turn-based strategy games. So it seems to have a little bit of that kind of fed into it, but at its core, it seems to be pretty true to the Warhammer 40,000 tabletop game, which I think is interesting, because if we haven't had, obviously computer games are massive, 40k is massive, and we've never really seen a proper interpretation of it like this. So I think it looks quite good.
I watched the same video that you did. I think the first thing to say is the art on it looks really nice. The trailer, I mean, I'm already in love because the trailer is Space Marines versus Tyranids. The Tyranids look great. It's probably worth saying that it looks like all of the new models are in it. There was lots of Gravis armor on the Space Marine side, the aggressors. It looks like, I mean, they've done a really good job of rendering. It literally looks like they've taken the Tyranid models, put them in a 3D scanner, and then made them mobile in the software. It's like direct representation.
Absolutely.
Which is cool.
I mean, we've said it before, and we've said it again. If you're going to make a 40k game, then the first thing you have to nail is all of that stuff. Do you know what I mean? It's like you could sell any Warhammer game as long as you get it to look good in these pictures. And I think that every games developer must know that by this stage, because even the games that came out and were gubbins still managed to get, you were still like, oh shit, it's a Space Marine on computer game that you were like, pleased to play with or whatever.
There's some really cool like action angles, like panning up. Like there was one bit that was like the full-on Michael Bay sexy lady walks onto the screen, pan up from her bum, but it was a Redemptor Dreadnought, a Deathwing Redemptor Dreadnought.
His thick Redemptor cheeks, yeah
exactly. But for me, I think it looks great. It looks like they've achieved what they set out to do. For me, it's too similar to going and playing a game of 40k. But some people like that, I've got nothing against
that's
it.
the thing that I was kind of thought was quite interesting about it, because obviously playing 40k, there is this huge social element to it, and maybe there are people that like computer games for the not social element of it, so maybe this is maybe this would bring them in and get them into the gaming part or the model collecting or something. So it's just more strings to Games Workshop's bow. And I mean, honestly, I'm sure that during this lockdown period you would have been very glad for something like this, that you and Matt could have played online together or something. I mean, it was so I think I'm interested to see where this is going. I don't want to give it the old Stony stamp of approval just yet, but it looks good, and I think that it'd be one for us to keep an eye on.
Okay, dare we speak its name? There is more app news, and that news is that the Dis app pointing app is now only $1.99 a month.
Oh no!
It has dropped in price. Which, to be fair, I actually think $1.99 was the correct price point if anyone was able to play games at the moment and it was a functioning app.
But all those things, but that's just it. The caveat on that, it being just one. Like, I love the way that it says, like, I mean, you've pulled up this picture of it at now advertising it as $1.99, and even the $1.99 has got a fucking asterisk next to it. Like, everything, like the app should just, that sums up the app in a sentence. Everything that you hear the app does, just put an asterisk next to it, read at the bottom of the page, doesn't fucking do it. And that's basically like, does it better on Battlescribe, that's absolutely free, by the way, still completely free. So if you are thinking about getting this app, just get Battlescribe. It's just not worth it at the moment. The fact that they've launched this and immediately put it down to bargain bin fucking prices shows that they don't even believe is what it can do. Do you know what I mean? It's garbage.
I love how whenever they make a comment about it, they post like a coming soon, and the list is all things that it should have had to start with, like you can now have
asterisk,
sub-factions.
asterisk.
Yeah. You can now have tank cases and adaptive physiology. What, you mean the rules? I can have the rules of the game. Oh, thanks. Oh god. And they're still teasing the Crusade functionality, which will make it worth buying if you're into Crusade, because tracking Crusade campaigns is a pain in the ass. If you're into that, it'll be worth it.
You're right. You know what? Hey, if this app sucked your dick and made your dinner, it would be worth the money, but it doesn't. So it's not. Don't fucking get it. It's not worth it.
They're running a new competition, though, aren't they? I've got an email about 3 hours ago. That's if you sign up. Yeah, I might do it. You win your trolley online on the online store.
Yeah, they've basically just changed the way the accounts work on the Games Workshop store, haven't they? And you can fill your trolley with up to 300 quid. Worth of stuff, and then in a few days' time they're going to select 5 people at random and just send you all the stuff in your trolley.
I'm gonna win.
That's supposed to be a thing, isn't it? Like, stores really hate it when you like fill up your trolley and leave it unbought or something, 'cause it fucks up their algorithms or whatever. But like, I actually got an email from Games Workshop
Games Workshop are the worst company for this.
What, filling up the trolleys?
No. Every time I go onto the Games Workshop website, 20 minutes later, I get an email.
Oh yeah. No, I got an email from them.
Just bang.
I think it was from when we were doing that our model challenge thing at the beginning of the year, because I went on there and I put it in the basket thinking like, should I buy this model from actual Games Workshop or from somewhere else? And then like instantly got like an email from Games Workshop being like, oh, I see you're looking at this sweet Eldar model. It's pretty cool. Why don't you buy it now?
Next bit of news, we very rarely talk about these guys, actually, although I think lots of us like them. Some love for the BDSM Dark Elves. Their codex is coming up next.
Okay.
There's not too much to go into, but they've had some buffs to some of their staple units that are kind of equivalent to the buffs other things are getting. So they've got a main weapon that does damage 2 now, for like every other weapon is becoming damage 2. More attacks on their kind of baseline units, so just some buffs I think, which will probably help out the Dark Eldar players. And then they've got that cool new Lilith Herispax model coming as well.
Another very jumpy off a piece of scenery model, but one that seems to work pretty well. That looks cool, and again, a bunch of conversions going to come off of that. So does this mean that we might get some new Dark Eldar models coming out?
Well,
no.
That woman is new.
Yeah, I mean, she's new, but like, because the Dark Eldar range, I think that we've got it up. I think that we should take a time to doffer our cap to the Dark Eldar range, because just how fucking well has that range aged over the years? Like, I was buying some of these models like, 10 years ago for conversions, and they still look fucking awesome. Like, they really nailed it with this range, and it would be good to see them get some more love, but like, there's still some life left in these old models for sure.
To be honest, I don't know enough about the range. The new box set that's coming out that's got Dark Eldar and Adeptus Sororitas in it has got some models that I don't quite recognize, like some slightly different poses perhaps on standard units, but it could just be that I know so little about Dark Eldar, I don't recognize them. Well, but it looks like a good box set.
I've got to say, Welsh, if you're doing a Slanesh army, then grabbing some Dark Eldar bits is really good. There's some really Slanesh-y good crossover bits. But also, if they're doing I didn't know they were doing a Dark Eldar Sisters of Battle army, boom, there's a bunch of Slanesh cultists when you mix all of that shit together right there. So, I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff.
I've got so many boxes, Stoney, of waiting to become Slanesh cultists. Every time something comes out, I think, that'll make great Slanesh cultists. I think I've got about 50 cultists, which is probably half as many as I need, to be honest.
That's it. Go for a full cultist army.
I don't know. I've always hated the the Dark Eldar range. I don't think it's aged that well at all. I tend to think anything within the last 10 years is new. Like my, although when you said that, Stoney, I did. The other day I was looking through my bits box and I came across the Dark Eldar figures that I got in the 3rd edition box set, which had Black Templars in. It came out, the Black Templars in versus Dark Eldar, and actually I think they're the same models. So those those were the Space Marines with the first proper plastic Space Marine kit with the funny old land speeder. So the Space Marines have been updated many times. That's like 25 years. Yeah, I'm sure the infantry are the same. So
Absolutely.
maybe you're right. Yeah,
I think they are. And all those weird kind of boat ships they have, they're all the same and been around for ages. All that stuff. Like
I think
sorry.
The most recent things are the grotesques and the Talos.
Yeah,
I think
they're really cool.
But those are still pretty old, like the racks, and they did though I think that maybe things like the homunculus and stuff like that are the more recent things, like because you could get a homunculus and then make a rack army of like all those weird, the guys that have got like the kind of weird sort of puppet frame on the back of them, and they're all like skin and bones now. Anyway, some cool models in the range. I like them personally. But it's again a bit like the Tau. It's kind of could do with some love now, I think. So
yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Okay, a bit of a different book. We often see that Black Library are bringing something out, and it's not often just novels. This actually looks quite cool. Coffee table book called Liber Xenologis, which is just like an encyclopedia of all of the Xenos races in 40k. Which, being as we did a whole episode on this 2 weeks ago,
totally would have been good for the last episode. Yeah. So this is a bit like your kind of a natural history book, but for fantasy. 40k guys, so it looks pretty cool. It's even got I'm noticing now, we were looking at a picture of it, and it's got it open here on the Zote. It's even got its Latin name underneath the Zote, like there's a common name and like so in this italics. So if you like nerding out on this kind of stuff, then this is going to be right up your alley.
I really wonder, I think it's online order only, not that you could go in a shop and look, but I wonder how deep it's gone, whether it's got some of the really weird stuff that we talked about last episode in it, or whether it just kind of skirts away from that kind of stuff.
They've got it open on the Zote page, which is pretty basic when you've done a moment's worth of research.
The next thing that I was pretty hyped about that they just previewed from Necromunda is this crazy new weapon for one of the Necromunda gangs called the Eviscerator Chainsword, which is
guys,
mental.
I don't know if you guys remember Necromunda when it first came out, but like, do you remember there was a gang called the Redemptionists, and one of their characters literally had this. It's one of the coolest models. You've probably seen it reused, and it's just a bald monk with a massive chainsaw, and like their whole thing was they had these like robes on, but obviously this was like the mid-90s, so they were all painted like fire robes and chainsaws that shot fire, and it was all fucking awesome. And it was a cool model, a really cool model, and he had this big bad boy, this Eviscerator Chainsword. So I'm psyched to see this.
Has it said who it's coming out for?
It's got to be the Redemptionists. They're going to redo the Redemptionists.
Yeah, because I remember those models. I had a book, and I used to flick through it all the time. It had all the Imperial Guard range in, and it had the Necromunda models in. And I always used to look at that range and think, oh man, I could make like an army of crazy priests. Like the models were amazing.
I hate to disappoint you.
I keep thinking they should bring them back.
But I think the hint and the little logo that they've put on this, I think, is the Corpse Grinder Cults. It's the Chaos guys that are in Necromunda at the moment. But possibly not.
The Redemptionists were like, is it Caldor? They were like a more extreme version of the Caldor gang. And actually, in hindsight, when I think about them, they would look like Ku Klux Klan guys that were just painted in flames. They had like flames on them rather than on the white. So maybe they felt like that they were worth phasing out in the modern era. But either way, they definitely had this chainsaw. And if you do want a crazy chainsaw wielding guy, then get on eBay and look for the chainsaw wielding Redemptionist model, because it's a classic. The 70s, the 80s,
the 90s.
Oh, we're going back in time. Is that a space squat? It's time we take you back with a blast from the past. This is the Blast from the Past, a new section to the show where we all take a little model from the past and just talk about it for 5 minutes. And Welshie, I think that you have been selected. You are the chosen one this week to gush over your favourite model from the past. So what's it going to be?
Well, I'm going to take you back, guys, way back to 1998, Gorka Morka.
Oh,
Okay. And we've talked about Gorka Morka before, but there's some models I don't know if you remember called the Diggers. And the Diggers were expansion to Gorka Morka. And they are humans that have descended from an Imperial survey team that grew up on a planet of orc culture. And they are essentially human slaves to the orcs. And as they rise up the ranks, they copy all of the orc culture. So the leaders are called Digger Knobs. There's Digger Shaman, who are like the Digger Psykers, Digger Boys, and they've got similar stuff.
So they've
and
kind
some
of got
them,
Stockholm syndrome.
Exactly, yeah. And they paint themselves green, and they use all of the orc writing, and they're just really stupid. It's full on the most Mad Max
yeah,
GW
it
ever
looks
went.
like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just love these models, and what made me think of them is some came up on eBay last week, and I just missed out on them.
They look crazy. I mean, yeah, they're very Mad Maxy models for the people at home. This really was the time of big hands and tiny heads when it came to the Games Workshop sculpts. Hands bigger than your head, palm a face you could with these guys. But yeah, they're cool models. They remind me a bit of the Scavy gang from Necromunda, the kind of the diseased sort of Underhive gang. They remind me a bit of those
haven't got
models.
a reboot yet, those guys, but that would be cool.
But anyway, they look good. They're cool.
I don't remember these. Are they metal? So they were a full release.
They were a release that came out in order that they were designed to be played in Gorka Morka.
Yeah,
so you set up your Gorka Morka fortress, and you had your race with all of your orc buggies, and then you could have a little like shanty town of diggers off of the side, and they have digger youths. They're just great. They had this whole. I found the 1998 White Dwarf that they were on the cover. Like these guys were the cover of White Dwarf, and they've literally never been mentioned, referred to again.
That's a great idea though, to have like human slaves in orcs. I think that's quite cool.
If the lore behind it was that they were scrappers who were really good at like welding, and the orcs were like bartering.
Yeah.
It was just a barter and trade that they had
sense.
between them and the orcs. So yeah, my blast from the past there. If you've never heard of them and you're listening on Spotify, quick Google Gorka Morka Diggers with an AS in the traditional orc way, and you'll see some great models.
How are they going? How did they go on eBay? Was there a lot of interest in them?
Yeah, the guys that you see here, so the 5 main metal models went for I think 42 quid in the end. Wow. Which, for something that rare, I thought it might even go for higher, but it was too much for what I wanted to do with them.
I guess you've got to, you see, after this podcast, the price will go through the roof. The interest will go mad.
Yeah, fuck that GameSpot or whatever it is. This is what you want to be listening to. Get off Reddit. For your buy-in tips.
If you want to keep your finger on the pulse of the Warhammer stock market, it's right here on the Large Blast podcast.
Talking of selling minis, are we going to talk about that thing?
Yeah, so we got hit up by some fella who's trying to set up a kind of a sort of an eBay exclusively for buying minis, basically, isn't he?
Yeah, it's called minisbarter.com is the website, and you can find Minis Barter on Instagram. And it's exactly as you said, Stonia. Yeah. eBay specifically for minis, but more of a kind of community run thing. You can post if you're a commission painter. That just accepting, I do commissions for anything. Here's some of my work. Hit me up and we can discuss how much for certain models.
Yeah, so, if you're looking to get your services out there as something to do with Games Workshop, or you're looking to buy some services or some interesting models or something, then it's worth a look.
It's obviously very new. There's only about 19 posts on there at the moment, but it's the kind of thing that could take off. The only thing I thought was missing from the website was a specific, like, how it gets when you fill up your pots with loads of bits that you're never going to use. Just a specific bits section of like, I've got all of these leftover bits from this kit. Who wants to trade with leftover bits for another pot? Maybe even no monetary exchange. I've got this pot of bits. give me an equivalent size pot of
freebies
bits.
and giveaways and stuff. Yeah, just I need another left hand for this particular model. Have you got it or whatever?
Yeah, it's a good idea. Yeah, I did go in very much with eBay on my mind, so I was trying to maybe beginning to judge it quite unfairly because I was comparing it to eBay, but I particularly liked the barter aspect, so the way you can trade a model with another model. Obviously you can't do that on eBay. You can do that in your club, but I thought that was quite cool, a website that allowed you to do that. That's quite interesting.
I thought that, I mean, it's really good. It is very new, so the only downside of it is there's not a whole lot of content on there. But if you listen to this and you've got something to throw on there, why not just chuck it on there, so and build it up, see what we can do.
Maybe we should all try and post an old model or something on there.
Let's do it.
Yeah, who can sell their model for the most money?
Well, there you are, guys. If you're interested in doing some bartering for miniatures, check out minisbarter.com.
So in this part of the show, we like to do a little something we call the model spotlight, where we shine a spotlight directly onto some cool or some bad models that have come out recently. But these ones are pretty fucking cool. So we've got a couple here from the new Warhammer Quest game. We've got Quillaris, the vengeful Sliveneth vampire hunter, or something similar, approximating that. Or Torgillinus, or something like that. Necromantic scientist, who's also pretty badass. So, how do you actually pronounce these, and what are they?
I'm going to go with Clathis. Who is the Clathis? There's no...
Or like a quiff.
It's Quulathis.
Well, Clathis it is.
Yeah.
She's Sylvaneth. She's a, so you're wood elf and doing a really cool dynamic pose. Also, classic, what's his name? Legolas style archery jumping pose. Really nailed it. I think that looks good. Do we want to do a 10-second description and talk about that?
I feel like you've stolen my thunder there. I would have gone straight to Legolas too, even though it's female. But so is Legolas, kind of, really, to be honest. Yeah,
I mean, it's got to have some Legolas, wood elves. She's got some cool antlers, which are pretty nice. And,
I think the little bit of lore they released as well. She's clearly one of the good guys. You can tell she's got a good guy pose. Her village was ransacked by vampires, and now she's on the hunt, which is kind of pretty cool as well. Entering the cursed city,
she will avenge her fallen.
I really like all of the fabric textures and textile textures on her. Like, they haven't gone over the top, but there's a little bit of everything on there. Some cool like weaved leather and some feathers and some fur.
The texturing is very important when doing miniatures, and obviously all the way from the braided hair, and then you're right, it's very subtle and nice. It's a cool model. It looks very good.
I'm surprised you're saying that. To me, that pose doesn't look natural. I don't think you could. I don't think you could stand the way she's standing. I don't think
but an elf could.
It's an elf.
That's the point. It's kind of like
I think
an elf can do that.
It's kind of. It's supposed to be kind of hyperdexterous, like we say. I
don't think an elf could do that.
Well, could Legolas do that?
Definitely. No, he could do it whilst riding a shield down a mountain.
Okay. Captain shit on me and Welshie's bonfire has just arrived and shit all over this one. But so mixed opinions, I feel, on the pose of Queefus or whatever her name is.
Let's do a 10-second on the next guy then. Matt, do you want to do 10 seconds? 3, 2, 1. Torgillius.
It's the wizard from the Lord of the Rings, the brown one. It's Gandalf's friend. He's got a pet eagle, a candle, a book, a really cool staff. He's got like a wolf pet dog thing that's on his right-hand side. Some really nice woodwork.
Yeah, you're right. Radagast. It screams
That's the
Radagast,
name.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Really, really cool model.
Yeah,
sharp.
This is very cool.
You said about the textures in the other one and in this one as well.
Yeah, they've got that wood looking really nice and worn and gnarled, which is
on the bat. The little bat hanging off the thing. That's cool. That's a nice touch.
Cool. I felt a bit like this bat appeared in a rumor engine recently.
I think you might be right, actually.
Yeah, we thought it was an alien.
Yeah. And we were all like, the towel's coming, or some other way off large blast podcast prediction. We're like, Fulgrim or some bullshit, and turned out to be this dude. But still, this is, I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm really liking the Age of Sigmar fantasy / releases, the models that they've been coming out with.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy he's got all the bad animals with him. He's got a rat. He's got a cool crow. That crow's fucking awesome. Bat, wolf, but yeah, withered old fucking guy. They've got whoever's doing these kind of cool sort of headpieces as well. Like we had that cool zombie guy, vampire guy coming up in the last thing with all those bones attached to his head, and him with this kind of weird thing. It looks like one of those things for carrying milk pails or something, but without the milk pails on and a bunch of candles on. Whoever
sign like pinned by a knife to his back as well. Like some weird writings.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be
list.
like a necromantic scientist magician, so his role in the game apparently is going to be to bring things back from the dead.
Welcome, Truth Seekers, to the psychic episode of the Large Blast podcast, but I'm sure you already knew that, didn't you? Anyway, Welshie's going to test me and Matt's psychic abilities right now with a little quiz that he has come up with.
Correct. So, being as this is the Imperial Psychic time, I thought I'd just pick a few psychic powers from the various Space Marine supplements. I'm going to tell you the name of the psychic power and a little bit of a description, and I want you to tell me which chapter that psychic power specifically belongs to. So the first one is the darkness within. The Psyker sends his mind forth, calling not the visible shadows surrounding his enemies, but rather to the fears and doubts that shadow their very souls. He draws out as weeping umbral ectoplasm until they kill themselves with depression.
Blood Angels?
Not Blood Angels, not Dark Angels. The most emo.
Raven Guard.
The Raven Guard. Point to Stoney. This one is called Righteous Repugnance. Reaching into the minds of his brothers, the librarian attacks the fires of their very hate and causes them to surge forward in furious violence.
Salamanders?
Blood Angels.
Nope. Who really hates and loves to hunt?
Wolves, space wolves.
Yeah.
Hunt the fallen. I didn't want to say.
Oh, Dark Angels.
The Dark Angels. Right. It's one apiece. Right, this one is just going to be, it's a very quick fingers on the button.
My fingers are on my button.
Sanguinius.
Blood Angels.
Blood Angels.
Oh, man, smashed it. Yeah, this one's really cool. It's the librarian can makes magic warp wings pop out of his back so he can fly like Sanguinius. Cool. Next one is called Drake Skin. The librarian.
Salamanders.
Oh, good work.
Oh, well done.
Even Stevens. Yeah, shimmering warp scales form around their armor. Reforge, pressing his hand against the rent.
Iron Hands.
Oh, I think Matt just beat you.
Yeah. God damn.
Okay, so as is always the case on any quiz, anyone can win with the last one. Now, this one is traditionally boring. Telepathic assault, gathering mental might. The librarian, correct, Matthew. Not even a slight hint of personality from the Ultramarines there. Just a taste of some cool psychic powers that are available in the new codexes.
So hopefully your psychic abilities are all warmed up and ready for the knowledge drop. What's coming now? Cool. So Welshie, you're going to take us away with the astronomican. What is the astronomican?
Well, Stoney, I'm glad you asked, because if you were living in the 41st millennium, you wouldn't be going anywhere without the astronomican. It would be like locked down forever. The astronomican forms the navigational beacon, and it is fired from the golden throne, dispersing light and signal and hope like a lighthouse throughout the entire galaxy. It used to be, when it was made in the 30th millennium, it's a massive aerial that the emperor could tap into and blast his psychic might like a signal of hope, so everyone could see. And it's something that when you're in the warp and you're doing warp travel, it's a point of reference because otherwise you'd be lost in the warp forever. It's a kind of stable point that can always be seen. And it, like I say, it's just a channel of his psychic might that makes this big kind of beam of light and brightness. And he was so powerful back in the day that he was even powering the Astronomican when he was on crusade. So he was just using like a portion of his mind to beam this light across the stars, even when he was light years away. Apparently it reaches 70,000 light years across the galaxy. And being as the galaxy is, I looked up these numbers, this is real dweeby. The galaxy is 100,000 light years across, and Terra is 25,000 light years to the west. It's why the eastern fringe out past Baal is always so dark, because the Astronomican, even at its height, could never reach there. So that's where the Tyranids started invading from in the first place.
So is he still pumping this shit out now, or is he like all withered up and it's just got like a 100-watt light bulb in there or something?
Well, that's a good question, Stoney, because in the 41st millennium, after the Emperor essentially became a bit of an invalid in his chair there, Malkador realized that he needed sustenance, and the sustenance that powers the Astronomican in the 41st millennium is burning through 1,000 psychic souls a day. So I think Matt's going to deal a little bit in a bit with how those psykers get there, but it's not powered by batteries or electricity or even just the Emperor's will anymore. It's powered by burning through the souls of 1,000 psykers a day. But before the Astronomicon was around, they had these little lighthouses, and there's a whole Horus Heresy book called Pharos about these tiny lighthouses that were built by the Necron that didn't quite work the same way. They were like empathic. So if you really wanted to be somewhere from them, you could kind of teleport there. And they had a couple, they found one near Ultramar, and they could shine it on places. And when the Astronomicon went down, the Ultramarines managed to shine one of the Pharos, one of these small lighthouses on Macragge, which is how everyone knew to kind of run there when things got bad. So there were these kind of pre-existing lighthouses, but this is beacon that the Emperor could provide was bigger than any of those. But it was never his aim to keep it running like this. He was trying to construct the Webway gate on Terra at the same time. So this was like a stopgap, but because he fell in the end of the Horus Heresy, he ended up stuck there burning through innocent lives.
That carbon footprint on that Emperor.
Exactly.
Are they innocent?
I'm sure you'll tell us that in a second, Matthew. But one last point that I have to get in before Matt tells you how these poor unfortunate souls get there is that this also acts like a moth to the flame for the Tyranids. And it's pretty much now accepted that the Tyranids entered the galaxy because of how bright the Astronomican is. And they're just being drawn closer and closer to it. So that's
so they're literally just insects. At the end of it, it's literally just fucking...
Exactly.
Oh, man.
But there's lots of good conspiracy theories about this, aren't they? Where the Emperor is making them come to clean the galaxy.
Oh, I've not heard that.
Yeah,
that's a classic Matt conspiracy up there with the 5G.
That's a literal David Icke conspiracy just lifted straight into 40k.
I hadn't thought about the moth thing though. That's the literal insect.
Yeah.
That's true.
We'll just turn that off and put a light on outside and it'll all go away.
I always kind of saw the Astronomicon also as like the Eye of Mordor, like the Tower of Mordor, over the world, like straight out of.
It's a very cool visual image. Yeah,
there's lots of kind of quotes from the books of discussions between when the religion of the Emperor was forming. You know, it was a time of science in 30k, and that moved to people believing the Emperor was a god. People being like, oh, I believe in the light of the Emperor, and then people saying there's no light of the Emperor, and people literally pointing, going, what the hell is that coming out of his head? Tell me that's not the true light of the Emperor. So that
shut them up, didn't it? Take that, atheists.
Without it, transport and the entire Imperium would fall, and it's probably the reason why even if we could get the Emperor off of the throne, it just can't be done anyway because it needs to be powering or at least guiding the souls and psychic abilities.
So I mean, does that lead more to this kind of idea that the Emperor is all just smoke and mirrors nowadays anyway, and just kind of like a dead man on a chair with and everything that he used to do is essentially being powered by something else?
I would argue that it lends more to the argument that he's a god because his physical existence has disappeared, but his existence in the warp remains because he is a god.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and that kind of you can tie that in with the more recent, when Cadia fell at the end of the 13th Black Crusade. There was Nocturnus, the night. For 200 years, the Astronomican went down when the Great Rift opened across the galaxy. So it's almost like the Emperor lost a massive battle in the Immaterium in his corporeal god form, which led to the Great Rift opening and then sent the Astronomican down for a couple of hundred years until Gilliman throwed out across the galaxy.
Can we talk about the fact that it's called the Astronomicon as well? And like, you know, a bit of a nod there to the Necronomicon, I'm sure, but it's kind of, it's a fun, cheesy rip-off. I like that. That's a good
Classic 80s lore.
All right, cool. So, more shenanigans. Black ships. Matt, you've heard of the white ships. You've heard of the green ships. But what goes on these chuffing black ships, Matt? Let us know.
I guess essentially they are the 40k slave ships. They have to capture and feed the Astronomicon with 1,000 souls to burn. So we've heard about the big tower. Mm-hmm. And now we've got to put, as you say, the batteries in to power it.
We've got to get those Mortys on this tower.
Exactly. And the way you do that is you have the second largest fleet in the galaxy thumbing through the stars, endlessly searching for Psykers. As part of an Imperial tithe, planetary governors will gather their Psykers up because they're unsafe. So they want to gather them up and they'll put them in a safe place. And then a black ship will turn up and they'll just throw them all on the ship. And they will slowly ply the stars back to Terra endlessly for 10,000 years, and the fleet continues to grow because it is, as Welshie says, it's the most important thing in the Imperium other than the Emperor. They use special ships that are only made in Mars, so they're only made in the Martian orbital shipyards because they are kind of anti-psychic, but they're also crewed by either psychers themselves or blanks, which I think you'll discuss more in a minute, Stoney, about blanks. But one thing I thought was quite interesting is that the captain of these ships has a vial of the world eater virus, the life eater virus, which is one of the ways of enacting exterminatus on a planet. So it's a little vial. So if anyone goes completely rogue on board, or if anyone looks like they're going to be successful in boarding the ship, the captain can break the vial and destroy everybody on board. Because the ship is full of thousands and thousands of human psychers, they're quite valuable cargo for other people like Chaos, Dark Eldar.
Yeah, that's cool. That's like your classic cyanide capsule in the tooth, right?
Yeah,
taking
yeah.
You just got this like really trigger happy captain. He's like, if you don't shut up back there, so help me fucking God.
I wonder, because they're all being built on Mars, is there anything in the lore you read about, is there any Blackstone on these ships?
No, there's no mention of that. Maybe that is definitely something, to be honest, it's not something I thought about, but you can imagine that's definitely something that they would write into the lore. There's nothing that I read about them being anything to do with Blackstone, but you can imagine because of the name that they'll try and link that in as there's more and more Blackstone in the lore. But it's quite interesting how they psychologically, to control the psychers going through warp space is obviously quite dangerous, but to control them, they try to destroy their ability to think rationally. So they hold them in cells for like 24-hour period, and then they move them to another cell, and every single cell on the ship is different, and it's blaring out sound, music, whatever, different music or sound in the cell. So it just kind of makes your mind go a bit crazy, so they can't concentrate on using their powers or being conscious of their powers because they're just psychologically
sensory overload.
Too into the D-rock that's blaring out.
yeah. But I think one of the reasons why the Sisters of Silence was created was to be the armed protection of the black ships, but they no longer protect them. So it's they have they have armadas protect them, but they kind of just go off on their own, and that almost protects them more because they're just lone ships
So
drifting.
when these guys get to Terra, when the slaves get dropped off,
Yeah, so they will. So the black ships form one of the two parts of the Astra Telepathica, which is an Adeptus department of Terra. So it's quite a major bastion of the Imperium. So it's they're called the Legion of Black Ships. That's one of their departments, and the other department is the Scolista Psykana, which is essentially a massive school that trains psykers. So when the black ships get to Earth, they essentially test them if they survive to see if they're good enough, valuable enough to train to go to the school. If they're not, they're fed to the astronomican, and their soul is destroyed to power the Emperor's light beam. And if they seem worthwhile teaching, then they could almost end up anywhere. They could end up in the Inquisition. They could end up crewing black ships. They could end up in the Imperial Guard. They could end up as an astropath. So it's quite a major organization.
it said
I
that
haven't read about the tests though. I didn't read about the tests
yeah,
themselves.
I think we're on Terra. There's the Adeptus Astronomicon as well. So there's
Yeah,
these thousands that
they
are
run
fed to the Emperor, and then there's psykers that actually are capable of channeling, and they know they're going to die, and they go through a kind of Buddhist style kind of meditation retreat where they become happy with the fact that they're serving the Emperor and their death is going to do really well. And those are the ones that aren't just kind of fed as souls, but actually help power and channel the powers of the Astronomicon. And that's called the Adeptus Astronomicon. And it said that, interestingly, all of these schools are hidden in something called the Forbidden Fortress in Terra. That's one of the only places that Arbites and Inquisitors can't just walk into. Inquisitors can't flash their rosette and get into the Forbidden Fortress. It's one of the only places that's like
It's forbidden.
inaccessible. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's quite cool. I think there was a link. I think in the 30th millennium, the Astra Telepathica they ran the Astronomicon, but then it got split. So as you say, there's now a separate department that
More bureaucracy.
runs it. Yeah, that's what we like.
But it's nice to know that there's a level of bureaucracy that's so forbidden that even the most bureaucratic bureaucrats can't get in there. I'm up next. I was going to talk about the Sisiters of Silence. But before we get into that, I was thinking maybe we could just talk a little bit together about like what happens if you're just a normal person and you wake up and discover that you've awoken some psychic powers in you, because that's where this all initially starts. As you wake up and you're like, oh shit, I can move the TV remote to my hand without without doing anything, and then all of a sudden someone comes in, whacks you on one of these black ships or something. So it's not a good time being a psyker in the 41st millennia or whatever it is. You got to get these sanctions and things like that. I mean, what do you guys think? What would you do if you woke up as a psyker in 40,000 times?
Can we do 40,000 and now, like two different answers?
Well, I mean, if we did now, you'd just make a shitload of money, right? But it's like if you did
That's what Uri Geller did.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly, man.
Oh my God, he's a psyker. Get him on the black ships.
Yeah, what do you think David Blaine is? I mean, Jesus.
I think initially it's the dream, right? It's the X-Men dream, and then it's very quickly not the dream.
Well, one of the things that I think's so cool about this part of the lore is it is so much like how crushed individualism is in the 41st millennia and how single focused the goal is on this one massive war. So it doesn't matter, like you could have this crazy, like you say, these crazy individual X-Men type powers, but it doesn't matter if you can't power a ship or fucking make the lifts go up and down or some bullshit, then you're for the chop, So it's a great piece of grimdark lore, the fact that these super special, super powerful beings are just kind of quashed like they were little more than bugs, essentially.
It is a mutation, isn't it, after all? So they're kind of frightened of
But it's a mutation that the Emperor had.
Yeah.
That's true.
But
that's
God,
because the Emperor isn't a human. Yeah. He had a human form.
All right, okay.
But it is kind of
anyway.
Some of the perpetuals that are cropping up more and more in the Horus Heresy books now, that's all kind of weaving to the final endpoint, have got mild psychic powers, like some of the will I think you'll talk about later, Stoney, and some of the other, not like moving furniture around like the librarius, but you know, some of the people that have been living for thousands of years alongside the emperor have some of these powers too. So it is an early mutation if it did come.
And there's plenty of inquisitors and stuff that just have got a little bit of it going on or whatever, and are just kind of, you know, so it's one of these kind of, oh, it's really bad, but if we like you, then we'll kind of just let it slide kind of, you know, rules. But there's also, I mean, I'm sure that you guys know as well about nulls and people that are like these black holes of psychic energy that kind of make people feel uncomfortable and things like that. And that's essentially what Sisters of Silence are. They're kind of these 1 in a trillion people where they're not only a null, which is a 1 in a million thing, but they're also fucking capable of kicking shit out of pretty much anything. So they get snatched up by the Emperor pretty damn quickly, and they're pretty much allowed to just wander around and do whatever they want, essentially, from what I can tell. Much like an Inquisitor, they've got freedom to just go around and, you know, maybe they're not allowed into the Forbidden Fortress, but they're allowed into play, you know, they're allowed into the Forbidden Foyer or like all these other areas. So like, you know, they're pretty much allowed to just get out there. They're considered to be one of the most blessed of the Empire's warriors. They don't speak. That's why they get the term Sisters of Silence. 1, because they're ladies, and 2, because they don't speak. Boom. Name.
Well done. Yeah.
The way they don't speak because they're like, oh, words are corrupted. Like, you know, chaos can twist words. They only talk in sign language, and then they listen, which seems to me to be they're still understanding language, but that didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. If they're just not talking, they can't say chaotic stuff, I guess, but like they can still sign it out and do, you know, whatever. That's why they don't do it. They're not into that. They're pariahs, obviously, which is that's the other name for a null, is, you know, these kind of black, you know, so, and they're basically used to come in and just be like, oh, what, there's psychers going on, and they just come in and just fucking demolish it. But one of the things about these nulls and pariahs is that people just hate being around them. They've got this weird energy around them, so people are really scared of these Sisters of Silence. They're kind of like this elite, you know, force, but everyone just kind of fears them. I don't know, there's just something a bit icky about them, which I felt was a little bit underrepresented in their models, if I'm being honest with you. A lot of the stuff that I read about them was that they are just kind of like really dislike. There's just, I don't know, there's just something kind of off-putting about them. And I did not pick that up from their model range at all. So I would quite like to see something a little more like, I don't know, uncanny or something weird about their models.
I think we should have a quick chat about the model range, because it's the first out of the 3 of us to have had a subject that we were just talking about. It's the first one really to have an official proper Games Workshop model range, and
it's technically an army from
it's really interesting how they went through that custodian release, and then these ladies came out, and you never would have thought they would have had a model range, but because they've been out for a while now, haven't they?
They have 5 data sheets. They've got 5 different units.
Is it the smallest army?
Yeah, because I've been looking at putting some into my Inquisition force. They have 5 different units, and 3 of them are the same box with different weapons.
Yeah, right. And there's if you click onto their thing on the Games Workshop thing, there's only 6 things you can select, which is the 5 units, and then that really dodgy model of the custode with the really weird face, and then they're quite cool Sister of Silence with just resting on the sword, which is actually a cool Sister of Silence model. That's
Janita Kroll, who is in the Horus Heresy at the moment, and she is really badass. She's like she's the Valdor of the Sisters of Silence, and she's like so null, like people don't notice her, so she just walks into rooms in meetings because she's like a top bod and no one knows she's there, and she has to like bash on the table for people to notice her. Even the Primarchs look at her and they just see like heat haze. Spoiler alert, she runs into battle, does some serious damage, and then Khan the Betrayer kills her by accident. Like he can't even see that she's there, and he's just running forward.
So how come she has a model then?
Because it's in the 30k range, I think.
And wouldn't it have been easier to just not release a model for her if she can't be seen in the lore? Just put the base down there.
But I think you're right on the models, Stoney. I'd paint them really dark.
Yeah. I just like I don't know what it is about them. There's just supposed to be something quite off-putting about them, and I see that they've done this thing with the hair, and they have given them kind of quite gnarly faces. But I don't know. I think if they could have just been something just a little bit more off about them, I would have appreciated that just from a lore point of view.
I just remembered the Forge World range is really cool. Their stuff, their tanks, the weird floating triangles with the opening like
James
camera.
Bond credits.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Yeah. You haven't seen it?
No, I haven't seen the Forge World one.
They're really cool. They're really cool. And when you see them, you can imagine them kind of floating over in silence, floating over a battlefield. Really, they're black. They look really cool.
Yeah.
They have a camera lens door, and you can imagine that they're pretty frightening. They're really cool models.
Well, I mean, the Sisiters of Silence, they're supposed to cause fear and stuff. They've got that.
Yeah.
Oh, I have seen that model. That is cool. Yeah. The kind of weird. It looks like that thing from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that like dug into the ground, but like a cool kind of It's a cool model. But anyway, like they're supposed to cause like fear and stuff like that, and they are fucking badass. Like if you're like a psyker or something, you're just done if they're around. Essentially,
I think I've just thought of quite a cool model conversion, because my head only ever seems to be 40k mixed with Age of Sigmar at the moment. That those shadow warriors switching out the cloaks with those guys that are like made of shadow.
Oh yeah,
quite cool.
That would be cool.
Yeah,
that would be good. Yeah.
The guys the gnolls that aren't lucky enough. We were talking about psykers that get unlucky. The gnolls that are really unlucky because everyone hates them end up like on the street or being prostitutes or being like Amasec addicts and stuff across the hives. That's a really interesting dynamic, and that's where you're reading Eisenhorn at the moment.
They might have a sort of a.
But there's I don't want to give a spoiler, but one of his retinue becomes important in that respect if you haven't got to that yet.
Yeah, so basically these guys go around kicking some arse all over the universe. We've mentioned them quite briefly in a 30k kind of backdrop, but like in 30k they were used a lot more heavily and they were seen as a little bit more acceptable. The Emperor was kind of big into them and founded them, and they were used to hunt down road psykers. Like they fucked up the Thousand Sons a whole bunch. I
wonder loads of them would do if they were around the Emperor.
I don't know.
Is that written? That must be written about somewhere.
It must be talked about at some stage.
Yeah.
Apparently no one can touch them and things. There's like weird stuff, like even their armor, even when they're not in their armor, it has to be stored in like a special thing because no one wants to touch it. It's got like a remnants of them in it and things.
I read can't be near them without going like when he's meeting with Janita Kroll, he like becomes really frail looking old man. Like he doesn't.
I wonder if they just fucking stink. just no one can tell them. They're just like they're too powerful warriors to just be like, take a fucking bath, you're gross.
BO.
Yeah.
I when I was reading about the black ships, I did read that they had kind of been set up to protect the black ships. They don't do it anymore, but and that's why they needed a force of gnolls to protect the ships.
I think they're kind of just these people that are kind of too powerful not to use in a way. So even though they do bend a lot of the rules, it's kind of like, well, they get the job done is essentially how most people see it, because they don't even like being around them. It's not even like they have any really redeeming qualities outside of being able to kick a shitload of ass. So that's kind of why they're kept around. In fact, like after the 30k times and all the Horus Heresy and all of that, they were literally hunted down. Like people were like, Emperor's gone now, we're done with these, we're just going to hunt them down and fuck them up. And it wasn't until Gilliman getting rebooted until they've all been sort of welcomed back with open arms, essentially, because he was like, I'm bringing them back, they're the ones, they get the job done,
Well, I may shine a little bit of light into why in a moment.
Another interesting parts I wanted to talk about is the fact that the Grey Knights just absolutely hate them. Like everyone else can kind of tolerate them, but because the Grey Knights are a little bit psychic, they just like absolutely hate them. And I wondered if maybe this was like a kind of like a comment on the fact that how dweeby the Grey Knights are, that they can't be around women kind of thing. And it's not even anything to do with it. They're just like, there's just something about these Sisters of Silence I just don't like. They just make me feel uncomfortable.
They've got that repressed.
They can't quite put their finger on it.
Repressed priest love from being locked up with their books in the library.
Yeah.
They just
Don't
too
tempt
much time
me.
praying and that. Another really cool thing is that they've got psych out grenades, which I think that Matt, you had mentioned way back on an episode, but it's basically made of ground up old psykers that explodes and just into a big mist of just kind of stuff that essentially fucks up other psykers.
Yeah, I think the Grey Knights have them, and some characters have them. I think it's like dust from the Golden Throne. It's like a psychic, or the astronomican, like psychic waste. It's a bit like Marmite, but in 40k.
The Calidus assassins got them as well.
You either love it or you hate it.
Yeah, but they make, apparently their ones are made out of ground up psykers. I don't know if all of them are, but that's that I thought that was quite interesting.
That's quite cool.
Yeah.
I wonder how big their psychic grinder is.
It's just the exhaust.
They're getting through a lot of psykers.
They just follow the exhaust of the black ships with a big open container. That's why the ships open at the front.
It's like people that try to reclaim platinum out of catalytic converters.
Yeah, they're cool. Like I actually quite like the models. I hadn't really thought that they're not spooky enough. You might be right there, but
I think they're quite,
I like the models. Cool. That's the thing, is I thought the range was cool, but like just after reading the lore, I was a bit like, maybe they could have lent into that a little more. But you know, they stepped up their cool range.
I tried to. They suffer in the rules at the moment. I've been doing some research recently on them. You can only put them into a Custodes army, really. So you can have a Talons army that's Custodes in these. It would be really nice if they could be added to more Imperium stuff. I think maybe they're too powerful, but
it's because also the fact that it does. After reading about this, and they've got this kind of weird sort of awkwardness about them, you could open up this whole kind of like partially, you know, kind of stuff that would appeal to your typical Chaos player, but that is Imperium as well. You know, like you say, these kind of weird pointy vehicles and like just stuff that's just a little bit uncomfortable and not quite the Imperium you've been used to looking at. So I think that there's a lot of potential in this range, and I like to see what happens. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the part of the show that you always tune in for and love the most, the Random Topic Generator, where we take the beloved company dice and roll it to determine a random topic on our Random Topic Generator table. So, Welshie, do you have the company dice?
As always.
Roll the company dice.
It's a one. Very apt for today.
Oh, yeah.
If you had one psychic bullet, you could kill anyone in the 40k universe, past or present. Who would it be? So it could be a model you really hate, a character you wish wasn't part of the lore, or you just want to be a good guy and change something for the better.
Oh, I don't know. What do you guys think? I've got an idea, but I want to see which way the water's turning before I start dropping these controversial ideas.
I have an idea too.
Okay.
I also have an idea.
Stalemate, eh? Mexican standoff of controversial ideas. All right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to say it. I'm going to shoot the Emperor. Fuck it.
As soon as you can't top that. You should have gone last. What you did?
Perpetual. You'd probably be doing a good thing. He's a god. He can't die.
He can with a magic bullet. It's a magic psychic bullet. He's gone. It erases him.
Oh, Stoney.
When would you do it though, Stoney? At what point? Yeah.
At the beginning, when he was a baby, as soon as his mum had given birth to him, I'd come into the room and be like, "Hasta la vista" from the future or whatever, and shoot him. I'd be hung as a madman, but I would die safe in the knowledge that I had changed the universe.
The Earth would still be in constant civil war.
Oh, is that what it was going on before?
Yeah.
Oh well, it hasn't really changed that much then, I guess.
Well, our mine's quite similar, Matt. So I'll say mine, which is I'd kill Gilliman.
Ooh.
I'd go to wherever his little frozen bed is, and I'd wipe the ice off, and I'd stare him in the face, and I'd blow him up. Because how much more exciting would it be if we weren't just revamping the Crusade? If some other Primarch had got the spotlight, and we didn't have to look at stupid blue models from Games Workshop.
I take mine back. I'm going double Gilliman. Me and Welshie, we both like you get the pillow. I close his eyes. You know, muffle him and close his eyes.
Just how much more exciting would it have been if like the Khan had come back?
Well,
the Lion had come back.
Yeah. Tell him,
I
man.
would
Tell
argue-
him. It's
I would-
right. I
I
hope
would
you're
argue-
listening to this, Games Workshop. Wait a second, Matt. Well, she's right here. If anyone out there from Games Workshop's listening to this, enough with the fucking Ultramarines. We've done with them. Who gives a fuck?
Get rid of him.
I would argue that it wouldn't change the Ultramarines would still be on every release. It wouldn't change that.
It's breaking the fourth wall with this magic bullet, Matt. Don't tell this magic
Yeah.
bullet what it can do.
I would kill Abaddon
When?
because as a loyalist, that is a good question. That is a question I haven't thought of the answer. So I'll just carry on and make it up in my mind as I waffle on about Abaddon being the despoiler, and he's just a really bad guy, but he's also a really brilliant guy at the same time, because he's the only person who can unite the forces of chaos and has succeeded to do that 13 times for 10,000 years. He's better than Horus could ever imagine being.
It sounds like you don't want to kill him, Matt. You're talking yourself
No,
out
no.
of it.
No, but that's why he wants to kill him.
Yeah, this is why I want to kill him. He's the ultimate, like,
he succeeded
he's
where
just
Horus
really
failed.
good. Exactly. So he deserves to die. I would kill him now in the 40k setting. I would kill him before the success of the 13th Black Crusade. I would kill him on the ground of Cadia and give the Imperium their ultimate victory.
Fair play.
As an
How would you
Imperium
do it?
fanboy.
Massive wedgie.
No.
To death.
I know how I do it. So he ends up having a 1-to-1 battle with Creed, and as a
Creed wins.
as a Cadian 8th fanboy, Cadia all the way, Creed would I don't know what he would do. He'd throw his cigar in Abaddon's face, and Abaddon would kind of, oh no, not my beautiful face. And at that point, Creed would kind of grab under his armor and grab his nuts with power.
I think that whilst Creed is distracted, Abaddon's just about to hit him. But oh wait, there's a plucky young Imperial soldier named Matt Cousins in the who goes, no, look out, Creed! Who turns round and kills Abaddon, and Creed gives him a nod and says, "Well done, Private." And they just another day in the job, and they cruise off together.
I'm now imagining Matt pulling off his helmet and whipping his hair. I am no guardsman, Nazgul style.
Cool. So in this part, we're just going to have a little chat about some cool psykers and some psychic powers and just general psychic shenanigans that we felt is worth mentioning. And Matt, I know that you're a big Grey Knights fan, and I know that there's a lot of psykers all up in there. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the Grey Knights?
Yeah, well, we couldn't possibly talk about Imperial Psykers and not talk about the Grey Knights. We've mentioned them a few times tonight, but they are the Space Marine chapter 666, which is cool in itself. They are a very, very secretive chapter. Not many people know about them. Not many people live to know about them. They are the demon hunters, and they run themselves under the Ordo Malo. They are composed entirely of psykers, so it's an entire Space Marine chapter of around 1,000 Space Marines, and they're all psykers, and very powerful psykers at that too. And they use psychic weapons, which is I don't think, other than maybe Space Marine librarians, nobody else uses them. And their particular weapon is the Nemesis Force weapon. So they have swords, halberds, demon hammers, and so supposedly they are incorruptible by chaos. They were set up at the end of the heresy by Malkador the Sigillite and Garrow, as well as some other famous Space Marines from both Loyalist and Traitor legions, which is why they are called the Grey Knights, because when the 8 original Masters of the Grey Knights, which included Garrow, formed the new chapter, they stripped their armor, because some of them came from Traitor legions, Garrow included. They stripped their armor back to the bare grey, so they became the Grey Knights. They're based on Saturn's moon of Titan, They have their own forge world, which is a Martian moon of Deimos, I think it's called, from Greek mythology. But the moon was moved from Mars to orbit
What?
Titan. Yeah,
What?
yeah.
I didn't know that. That's amazing.
Yeah. They moved the moon to orbit Titan to be their own forge world. And before Malkador the Sigillite was incinerated on the Golden Throne, he hid Titan with his psychic powers, so that the Grey Knights could form a chapter and re-emerge as a fully fledged military force, which they did. So the moon kind of vanished into space, and then the Siege of Terra happened, and it was protected. And then during the scouring, the moon reappeared, and the whole Grey Knight chapter was formed and ready to fight. And they have been fighting demonic incursions for 10,000 years, and obviously at an increasing rate in recent lore. But they're pretty cool. They're like the ultimate Imperium Psyker. If you're a Psyker in the Imperium in 40k, you probably want to end up as a Grey Knight rather than anywhere else. But my character, so there's many famous Grey Knights.
Can we just, before you move on to your character,
yeah,
they also have one of the worst models in the entire 40k range.
What's that?
The Dread Knight. The Dread Knight Baby Grow.
It's not that bad.
Stupid.
It is very silly.
I don't think it's that bad. It's quite old now, actually.
It is.
I think we mentioned it on the last episode, the walkers, strange walker devices.
That new. Also, the Demon Hunters Codex, one of the best codexes.
Oh, classic! Yeah.
You know.
So good, so good.
Yeah.
I was gonna mention actually so there's 8 Grand Masters of the Grey Knights, and that links back to the 8 original Space Marines that formed the chapter, and they are the only people in the Imperium that know about the Terminus Decree, which is the box under the Golden Throne, which has got a secret in that nobody knows what it is. When humanity is on its last legs, one of the Grand Masters will go to the Golden Throne and open the Terminus Decree. And obviously there's a lot of rumors about what that is. The most common one is that it shuts off the Golden Throne, and it links back to what you were saying, Welshie, about the perpetuals and Vulcan, that the Emperor is a perpetual, and that the Golden Throne is turned off to allow the Emperor to die. And the Grey Knights would do that because then the Emperor would be reborn.
You just take the front panel off and it's just a massive on-off button.
Restart. Yeah, restart.
Yeah, you got to push a needle into like a little hole, and it just does a hard restart.
He can't hold it because his gauntleted hand is too big for the little stupid like SIM card access panel. Go on then, tell us about your favourite, Matt.
So my favourite, I do like the Demon Hunters Codex was amazing, and I started to collect a few of the metal models when that came out, and the Grey Knights really connected with them. And then I like the plastic models when they came out, but I don't like them that much, so it's kind of hard. I felt like I had to talk about them because we were talking about Imperium Psykers, and there are a few characters in the Grey Knights that are quite interesting. I could have chosen Grandmaster Drago, who's
the best
Supreme
one.
Grandmaster. You think he's the best one? He's not the best one.
He's fucking the best one. No,
Baldus,
that's it.
Baldus,
Show's
Baldus
over.
is
Fuck this. Psychic shows are right off, guys.
Why is he the best one? Do you like the model's horrible?
He just wandered around being mental. I didn't even know he had a model.
Yeah, he has a model, but he does wander around being mental. He wanders around in the warp, and he's only allowed out of the warp when the Grey Knights need his help.
Yeah,
but
if he stays too long out of the warp, he disappears, fades away.
Yeah. But one of those times when he appeared to help the Grey Knights, he was particularly drawn to one battle brother who had such a big psychic presence that he was particularly impressed. And this guy really kicked. No, this guy particularly impressed him.
He probably got under that loincloth.
Yeah. Drago was particularly impressed with one particular Grey Knight, and he decided to give him a battlefield promotion to Grandmaster, and that's my
AKA a
character.
back rub.
So he gave a back rub to my guy, which is the Grandmaster Voldus, who also has a model. And he is quite cool because I think that he has had a massive impact in 40k lore, which is why I picked him. And he's very cool. So the Grey Knights have a prosticators in the chapter who basically look into the warp on Titan and try to read the future. And they read the future so that they can be at big demonic chaos incursions. So they're there when the demons appear. And some of these people told company to go to Macrad to help the Ultramarines fight a Black Legion incursion. And they were there at the time when Belisarius Cawl turned up to reboot Gulliman. And it was Voldus who kind of helped that happen. And it was Voldus who helped slap Gulliman around the face to kind of wake him up from his, like, I've been asleep for 8,000 years and I'm an Ultramarine and I whatever want to do whatever I want to do. And Voldus was like, no, you're going to do what I'm going to tell you to do, and we're going to do this, and we're going to go back to Earth, and we're going to sort things out. Gulliman was very distracted with Nurgle infecting the 500 worlds with the disease that Gulliman could cure by his presence. So Gulliman was trying to heal everyone. He was like, I'm trying to help everyone. And Voldus was like, fuck the people. You need to...
Save the Imperium.
Yeah, fuck the people, save the Imperium. Nurgle is trying to distract you with saving the 500 worlds. You need to save Earth and the Emperor. And so they went on a crusade to try to get back to Earth. And they, through lots and lots of story arcs, they end up on the moon and they end up fighting Magnus. And it doesn't go well. And Gilliman is nearly killed by Magnus, but then Gilliman manages to stab Magnus in the chest with the Emperor's sword and banishes Magnus with the help of Voldus. And the Sisters of Silence come also at the same time, which help. And he essentially is the reason why, or one of the reasons why, Gilliman gets back to see the Emperor.
That's all great heroic stuff, Matt. But why does he have such a stupid hat?
A swimming hat.
It does look like a swimming hat.
That's what all the Grey Knights wear them. They're that's what medieval knights wore. There's a name for
a
them.
cowl.
That's it. The thing that drew me to the Grey Knights in that original Demon Hunters Codex was the artwork that showed details like that. I really thought that was
the
really
swimming
cool.
hats that
the swimming hats. Yeah.
Is this the model that came with? Is this come in one of the boxes of free?
Yeah,
it
came
out?
with the Gilliman. So it came with Gilliman and Cypher. Yeah.
So he woke him up, gave him a slap around the face, jumped in the free model box set. Boom.
Okay, my Psykers that I want to talk about are kind of the weird ones, not the traditional bog standard telepathic assault ultramarine bullshit, but the Psykers that don't follow the rules and haven't followed the rules for a very, very long time. And that's the Psykers of the White Scars and Space Wolves. The White Scars I really like because they're just these real like elemental magicians. And Chagoris, the homeworld of the White Scars, had shamans on long before any contact with the Emperor or long before any contact with the Khan. And they had these kind of rituals, like growing up rituals, like in Sparta, where if you have these kind of strange powers, like you were saying, Stony, you wake up and you can move a table around. You had to go on this epic pilgrimage to like the tombs up in the mountains, and it was really, really dangerous. And if you survived, the shamans would come and take you. And that tradition carried on all the way till the Khan arrived, and the Khan continued that tradition. And even after Nicaea, they just carried on with that. And the White Scars throughout the Horus Heresy would only take recruits from Chagoris and only have a librarius from Chagoris that had followed this route called the Zagian Arga. So they have this like animalistic, shamanistic powers. And on the board today, my favorite named one is called Ride the Winds, and they can summon like gusts of etheric wind that like boost the motorbikes across the board and summon storms and lightning, and it's really similar actually to the barbarian rune priests of the Space Wolves, who again haven't followed the standard librarius rules. And I think with Space Wolves it's even weirder because they have these elemental powers, but they don't admit that any of it has anything to do with psychic powers. In fact, they were so oblivious to the fact, or ignorant of the fact that it did, that they went and murdered an entire planet of Thousand Suns for being sorcerers with both of these legions. I just think it's cool that neither of them would really accept the fact.
Well, at least every time the Space Wolves think about that, they can make it rain so no one knows they're crying.
Yeah.
That's why they developed that power.
I've just got some yod in my beard.
It is always, these kind of, it's like I've seen some cool conversions of those space sharks that I know we've talked about in the past. And one of the things that is so cool about those chapters is this like bringing together of these like natural, like you say, like barbarian spacemen. I guess the salamanders have it a bit as well, but these guys commanded weather and doing all of that kind of stuff. Like rain dances. Has that kind of connection to stuff that we recognize from real life, but just turned up to 40,000.
So a couple of notable characters, both from 30k, because I like my 30k lore. The White Scars would be Targatai Yeshagai, who was their lead librarian and basically the Khan's best mate and right-hand man, more so than a lot of the other generals and primarchs. And he sacrifices himself, opening a webway gate in a seat designed for the Emperor to save the entire White Scars Legion. So that's like a pretty big input into the lore. The way the White Scars escape the Emperor's children trap is to go through the webway. So he's like a real hero and someone who actually spoke up for the Librarius at the Council of Nicaea. So the White Scars and the Blood Angels and the Thousand Suns were all on pro-Librarius side. And weirdly, this is how it links again back to the Space Wolves, Oathweir Weirdmake, which is an excellent Space Wolf name, is the Rune Priest that basically pretends to be Araman's best mate to find out all of the stuff about the sorcerers and being like, oh yeah, we're quite similar. And then stands up at the Council of Nicaea and speaks out against the Librarius and says how we're not similar to them at all. Rune priests are nothing like the Librarius. The Librarius should be shut down. It's just such double standards.
Yeah, how did they get away with that?
Well, because Chaos tricked them into doing it. So the Emperor never actually sent the Space Wolves to destroy.
Yes.
To destroy Prospero.
They thought the Emperor did.
In my part, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the idea of the will, because it seems to appear quite a lot in all different sort of manners and forms as like a psychic power, and quite a lot in the Guffins.
Yeah, I think you can get easily sidetracked by all of the crazy, I'm making wings of Sanguinius pop out my back, but actually probably a lot of the Psykers and a lot of the way things get done by the Inquisition is just making people bend very slightly to your will, Jedi style.
I mean, it's just this kind of, it's a bit like a real life Darren Browning, essentially, what would be a trick. This idea of just being able to be so willful and project yourself towards someone that kind of wants to believe you so much that they're prepared to just do what you want. And then maybe you might meet somebody else who has a stronger will, and you have like a kind of a weird scanner style, wow, 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 bow, 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 style battle where you look at each other and hold your temples until one of you eventually does what the other one wants, kind of thing. Yeah, essentially a bit of a staring contest, but it goes, I mean, it works its way into the game as well. I swear there used to be a psychic power that gave you control of somebody's vehicle or someone's unit for one turn, and you could just run around and just be them for a bit and shoot at who you wanted, that kind of thing. So it just seems to be a very consistent and basic kind of psychic power that we've seen from the very beginning, right from sort of Rogue Trader days. This kind of idea of the psychic power, psychic will, and things like that has been in there.
I was gonna say you're absolutely right. I remember playing. I can't remember whether it was a game with you, Welsh, or it was Nick. Somebody took over my backline tank and made it turn in a Gene Stealer cult game, and made the barrel of the neutron laser turn around and and like fry some key unit. There are right up until now they're in the game and the lore where you can do that, and it's always good fun. It's like the Age of Empire priest when they like do that chanting and take you over. The monk thing.
That's it. Anyone else want to say anything about Psykers?
I was going to talk about the Vortex of Doom and Gate of Infinity.
How can we not?
My favourite psychic power.
Does
thing.
the Vortex of Doom still exist?
It does, but it's not as good as it used to be. Was it 7th edition? Was it?
So for
Which
those
bit-
that haven't played Warhammer, have only played 8th and 9th, there was a power called Vortex of Doom that essentially put a spiraling twister of psychic energy onto the board that moved in random directions and obliterated anything it touched. It touched the model was gone. And it was
so
hilarious.
I think it stayed on the board and it moved around. Whereas now, now it still exists, but it just is it's just something that affects the unit. But before, it was like a thing. So you kind of needed a model for it to kind of represent a power to float around the board.
They should make one of those, those little robots that go around and clean your house, a Roomba. They should make a new one, like a little 40k size one of those that just drives around and destroys models. Yeah. It was just basically a blast template you moved around the board, but we just made a cool domed one.
Bring back
blast templates.
Bring back blast templates. You heard it here on the Live Blast podcast.
One day we'll be relevant again, guys.
The only reason they're bringing back Warhammer Fantasy is that they gives them an excuse to bring back the blast template.
Okay, everybody, and welcome to the last part of the show, a little something we call the Lords of Lore, where we get a bit of a competition and see what Matt and Welshie would do in certain situations, pitted against each other or what have you. And today we're going to do Make 'em Laugh, Make 'em Frown, where I want you guys to work on this together, where I'm going to give you guys some characters from the 40k universe. I want you to think of something that would make them frown, make them feel sad, and then end with something that will make them feel happy. Number 1, we've got Gazgal Fraker. What do you think's going to make him happy? What do you think's going to make him sad?
Peace. The nuclear disarmament.
I reckon he's probably got a favourite squig, and I reckon he might get hit by some knob's truck, and that's just he's gonna get real down in the dumps about that.
Oh, no one likes to lose their favourite squig. Yeah, okay. Oh, Gazgal's sad. So how is he going to make Gazgal happy?
Just war.
Just
Endless
straight war.
Super
Endless war.
Mega war.
But what about, this is what you do. What do you get the present for the guy that likes war, that isn't war? He's got enough, it's like at Christmas and you tell your grandma.
You give him a whole tendril of a Tyranid hive fleet to fight over.
I'd give him
really happy.
a Gorka Morka box set for his days off.
Yeah, that is good. That would make him very happy. He'd love that. He'd be like, "Oh shit, you've got the diggers in here. I remember them. They were great."
100 billion Tyranids to fight.
100 billion Tyranids to fight. Yeah, he'd probably love all of those. Which brings us on to our next guy. What would you give old Run-Eye to make him feel sad? No, he's cruising around. He must have some insecurities somewhere, old One-Eye.
What about a poke in his other eye?
A poke in his other eye. Mocking his other eye. Yeah, absolutely.
This is like his arsehole.
A poke in his arsehole. That would shock him. That would shock him. Yeah, okay. Double team, one in the eye, one in the arsehole. That would upset him.
Yeah.
That would upset him. You're right. Oh, you've made him sad. So how are you going to cheer him up? How are you going to make old One-Eye feel better?
Feed him.
Feed him.
But when you've got a pet and you put some food inside like a cardboard box or something, I'd put some of his favourite food inside a Land Raider and just let him rip it apart to get into it.
What about giving him a whole black ship full of Psykers?
Oh, that would be good. Yeah.
Like a Christmas stocking.
Yeah, it's like a delicious coconut on the outside and delicious flesh on the inside. Great. Well, what would you guys give to Mephiston to make him feel sad? Loverboy Mephiston.
Sanguinius's head.
Oh, come on now. That's too sad. We're just trying to ruin his day,
A trip to see Uncle Fistula in the Bahamas. Because I reckon his pasty ass skin is not going to last a trip out catfishing with old Fistula.
Oh, Fistula, don't you worry. I think that Fistula knows. He's already cooked up some factor 50 billion. That's what all their psykers do, essentially, is just make psychic sun cream, I reckon, so they can welcome their pasty-skinned brothers, because they have a lot of, there's a lot of pasty-skinned.
That's true.
What about, well, he's a librarian, isn't he? So what about a whole load of beautiful Sisters of Silence, women that he couldn't touch, women that would not be wet for him? That's
okay, yeah, and instantly kill his boner. You're right. Okay, cool. Yeah, all right.
So he's
all right. Cool. That made him sad. But how are you going to make him pick him up again? We've got to pick him up. You know,
a whole load of other women that aren't Sisters of Silence.
So just bucket loads of pussy.
Yeah,
is the answer. Okay, cool.
Give him a ride on old. What's that new Slanesh fella? Glutanos, whatever his name. Give him a ride on that chariot.
Oh, okay. Cruising around on the chariot. Yeah, having people throwing roses at him. Oh, okay. That's very better. Okay, and last one for the day. How are we going to make the Emperor feel sad? It's the ultimate question. This is not for any of my chaos leaders. I'll tell you that.
I don't know, like, because killing him would just he'd just be reborn. Imperium failing, he'd probably be like, well, you failed, so you're stupid. And he'd probably be happy that it failed. If it won, he'd probably be happy, but that doesn't make him sad.
I don't think he feels happy or sad.
Yeah.
I think he just feels, I think he's like a psychopath.
I think if he won,
what about if he
happy.
punched him in the balls or something? You couldn't just annoy him. Like, I mean, I know we're saying happy and sad, but at the end of the day, you've got to make him sad. I mean, make him sad, but you've got to like.
I don't know. I was going to say send him Gilliman's head, but I don't even think that would make him sad.
I don't think so. He's seen a lot of Primarchs died. Yeah.
Maybe he loved Malkador, so maybe replaying Malkador's death and reminding the Emperor that he caused his friend's death, and show him the ashes of Malkador. That probably wouldn't make him sad either.
Maybe just waking him up. Maybe he doesn't know what's going on. If he's tripped in the Immaterium and just go, look what you did.
Yeah, wake him up.
What about you wake him up, you show him a picture of the Invader ATV and like, look what this world has become.
Yes, you've got it. You've got it.
Yeah, cool. That's got to be it. Yeah.
All right. So how are we going to cheer him up again? How are we going to make
bring in
Emperor
Belisarius
happy?
cool so he can get rid of any scrap of evidence of the ATV?
So instantly undo.
No, I think
if I wanted Space Marines to be a third as tall, I would have made them like that. Give him a webway. Give him the keys to the webway.
Yes.
Give him the keys to the webway.
Yeah. Give him a human webway. That would make him happy.
Nice. All right. So there we go. We've brought a little smile to the Emperor's face on this, the Large Blast podcast. Thanks everyone for listening to this, the Psychic episode. We'll see you next time. Say goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.